Harper Audio presents With Shuddering Fall, a novel by Joyce Carol Oates, performed by Cassandra Campbell. What is done out of love always takes place beyond good and evil. Nietzsche. Spring. 1. One morning in early spring, a man and his daughter made their way along the country lane that led back from their house. The man walked ahead, stepping easily over the frozen ruts. The girl, hugging a paper bag, walked clumsily. She wore old shoes of her father's, great cracked shoes hardened with mud but suited well for this trip. She did not want to ruin her own shoes. Karen had not wanted to come with her father to visit the sick man, the crazy hermit everyone called him. But her older sister, Celine, had gotten out of it somehow, and her father would not go alone carrying food. That was woman's work. Karen muttered silently to herself arguments she might have used. Sickness. She had a stomach ache. Fear of the old man. She had been afraid of him all her life. Or she might have simply refused to go. But before her father's words, all defenses vanished, and there she had stood, sulking, cleaning out a canning jar while the soup warmed on the stove. Celine had rattled pots around, trying to look busy. Finally, she cried with vexation, "You needn't look so put upon. He loves you best. You shouldn't mind going back with him." Karen had stared around at her sister. Celine was 26 now, but looked older. She had always seemed old to Karen, who was 9 years younger. But this morning her thin little eyebrows, her small moist eyes, her flat cheeks, seemed those of a woman who had never known youth. "I will never look like that," Karen thought clearly. Karen and Celine were the last of the children at home. Their 3 brothers and 2 sisters had all gone off or married or both. Their closeness in the last several years had never developed into intimacy. But Celine, interpreting Karen's look as a reproach to her own rudeness, said, "Albert's taking me for a drive this afternoon. Would you like to come along?" Albert was Celine's fiancé of sorts, a teacher at the town high school. "Would you? I know Albert wouldn't mind." The thought of going for a ride that afternoon ought to have pleased Karen, or at least made her indifferently curious. But in the face of the visit to the old man, it was impossible to care about anything. They were nearing his cabin now, having left the lane, and were following a path toward the creek. Karen walked along doggedly. Her eyes were still stale from sleep. Down at the creek, swift brown water rushed against the ice, cutting a channel through it. Every day the channel grew wider. The ice was broken away an inch at a time. Thick, muddy water in the rapids churned with uprooted bushes, propelling sticks and trunks and parts of boats before it. As they neared Old Rule's cabin, Karen stared through the dead weeds to the water. It was alive and moving, squirming, the only real movement in this chill morning. Only a few weeks ago, she had walked out onto the snow-covered ice, and now the creek had changed entirely. It looked luring and sinister, and the rapids gurgled as if they gloated over its violent metamorphosis. Karen pressed the paper bag against her and felt the vague warmth of the jar of soup. Then they were at Old Rule's cabin, an eyesore, a disgrace. Tar paper shanty with old rusty pieces of tin nailed up any which way. Plyboard hanging out of one broken window like an arm waving them off. And around the shanty, piles of junk. Scrap metal and parts of crates and soaked limp cardboard lashed together with twine. Boards with raw nails sticking out of them. Short rusted rolls of chicken wire, barrel staves, junk washed up on the creek shore. Karen remembered a time years ago when Rule had tried to sort out his junk, putting boards and wooden material into one pile, metal into another, miscellaneous things like nails and cardboard into another. But apparently he had given up. and all piles expanded out.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?